Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a new video idea. The last video I did of this was me talking about like they should like make something similar to the Imperial Empire Total War. Um, but yeah, here we go. This is about Game of Thrones. Total War. It doesn't exist. This is why this is an idea, not a mod, but them actually making a Game of Thrones Total War. With what's out there, nowadays, it could be done using stuff from previous versions. Updating, improving it. Um, Taking a drink of my tea. Here we go. I'm gonna read from the thing. Uh, so, Game of Thrones Total War. Campaign beginning, the House of Dragon era, normal campaign ending, 1 year after Game of Thrones, the television. So, it's, during the House of Dragons, TV show, and ending 1 year after the television series. That's this. That's if everything goes, normal. If Westeros falls to the Night King, the campaign continues for additional 100 years in game after after Westeros falls. So now I guess I'll get into the basic idea. Game of Thrones Total War would combine the large-scale strategy of the Total War series with the political intrigue, dynasties, warfare, dragons, and supernatural threats, an enormous world of Game of Thrones. The House of Dragon. The campaign would begin during the Targaryen era shown in the House of Dragon and potentially continue all the way through the events of Game of Thrones. However, the television storyline would only serve as the historical starting framework. The player is not required to follow it. The game would be designed around one central philosophy. History can change. The player can watch this history unfold naturally or interfere with it. A character who historically died could survive. A house that historically ruled could be destroyed. A rebellion could fall. A war could never happen. A different dynasty could sit on the Iron Throne. The dragons could become extinct. The dragons could survive. New dragons could be discovered centuries later. The White Walkers could be defeated at the Wall. Or Westeros could fall and the entire game could transform into a 100-year survival campaign. The campaign map. The campaign map would be massive. It would not focus exclusively on the Seven Kingdoms. The goal would represent as much as of the known world as practical. Westeros. The map would include the North, Riverlands, the Vale, Westerlands, Iron Island, Crownlands, Stormlands, the Reach, Dorne, the Wall, Beyond the Wall. Essos. It would also include major areas such as Bravos, Pentos, Mirror, Tyros, Lies, Violence, Norvals, Corhole, Slaver's Bay, Astfuro, Yunkai, Mirin, Karth, Dorathi, the Dothraki Sea, uh, Yaitai, Ashi, and other eastern territories. Additionally, unexplored areas could exist on the edges of the known world. Why the map is so large. The the enormous, goddamn. The enormous map gives players reasons to play factions outside Westeros. A campaign does not have to become who controls the Iron Throne. Instead, a player could create a Dothraki Empire, a Barvosi trade empire, a Volantin superpower, a Targaryen restoration, a Northern Stark Empire, an Eso kingdom, a pirate empire, a completely new dynasty. World becomes a genuine sandbox. 4. A historical event system. The game begins with major historical events from the House of Dragons period. The game then attempts to reproduce the historical timeline. Possible major events include the Dance of Dragons, decline of the Targaryens, loss of the dragons, Targaryen politically declined, Robert's Rebellion, War of the Five Kings, Daenerys' rise, rebirth of the dragons, and the White Walker invasion. But every one of these events could potentially change. Watch history or change history. At the beginning of the campaigns, players can essentially choose between two styles: historical, historical sandbox mode, or just historical mode. Allow major events to develop naturally. Alternate history. That would be like normal Total War stuff. Interfere with history and create a completely different timeline. There is no requirement for the game to recreate the television show exactly. The player creates their own version of the world, such as normal Total War fashion. Dynasties and characters. Characters could be extremely important. Kings, queens, lords, commanders, heirs, princes, princesses, and other important characters would have individual identities. Characters can marry, have children, inherit titles, become generals, kings, queens, advisors, be assassinated, be imprisoned, be wounded, die in battle, betray their faction, start rebellions, change alliances. That's just normal Total War stuff. The campaign can therefore continue through multiple generations. 7. Succession. When a ruler dies, succession becomes important. You know how older Total War. I'm taking of my tea. When a ruler dies, succession becomes important, depending on the faction's laws and traditions. Ooh, I don't know. My nose started running then. Successors could include sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, cousins, and other claimants. A disputed succession could cause civil war. A faction could therefore destroy itself without an external enemy ever invading. King's royal authority. Kings receive a special campaign ability, royal war decree. The king commands one of his lords to attack another factions. For example, the king commands House Stark to attack the Bolton. The Lord can obey, but the Lord can refuse, refusing the king. A lord who refuses the royal decree suffers political consequences. Defending repeated refusal could lead to disobedience, lost royal favor, political conflict, treason, rebellion. The king could then order loyal lords to suppress the rebellion. This creates a political system similar to this in spirit to the Papal Crusade system in medieval II and Rome Total War, but adapted to the feudal world of Westeros. Faction types. Different types would play different roles, or would play very differently. Great houses focus on feudal politics and terror. Kingdoms focus on large-scale warfare and diplomacy. City-states focus on trade, wealth, and diplomacy. Merchant powers focus heavily on economic influence. Pirates and raiders focus on naval warfare and coastal raids. Nomadic factions focus on nobility and massive cavalry armies. Supernatural factions use completely different mechanics from normal civilizations. The Dothraki. The Dothraki could initially function somewhat like the tribal factions from in Barbarian Invasion. That's an old one, ain't it? Barbarian Invasion, Total War from the. It's supposed to be an DLC for Rome, from Rome, but they turned it into its own game. They would be highly mobile. Instead of relying essentially entirely on conventional cities, they could operate through Carl's nomadic camps, herds, raiding armies, and conquest. Their primary objective could be unite the Carlses. Once unified, the player could create the Great Carls. I know it's hard to pronounce. The Dothraki could then launch massive campaigns across Essos and eventually Westeros. The Dragon System. Dragons would be individual legendary creatures, something similar to the Warhammer Total War games, like 1, 2, and 3. How, like, certain monsters would be their own unit. Dragons could be individual legendary creatures. Each dragon would have a name, age, size, strength, speed, firepower, rider, bloodline, combat experience, injuries, lifespan, potential offspring. A young dragon would be dangerous. An ancient dragon would be a strategic weapon. Dragons require riders. Normally, the Targaryens would have the strongest connection to dragon riding. However, the sandbox system allows other factions to eventually acquire dragons. This means entirely new dragon riding dynasties could appear. The death of the dragons. The historical campaign may see the dragon population collapse. The dragons could eventually disappear. However, the player can prevent this. They could preserve existing dragons, breed dragons, protect eggs, change historic events, discover ancient eggs. This means the extinction of the dragons is not guaranteed. Daenerys and the rebirth of the dragons. If the campaign follows history far enough, Daenerys could potentially become a source of the new dragon age. But if history changes, it could completely be different. Daenerys might never hatch dragons, hatch more dragons, never reach Westeros, conquer Westeros, die before reaching Westeros, encounter a completely different political landscape. The player determines what happens. Hidden Dragon Lord Tombs. The world contains hidden locations known as Dragon Lord Tombs. Their locations are not revealed on the campaign map. They could exist in mountains, deserts, islands, caves, ancient ruins, forgotten fortresses, remote wilderness. The players and AI factions must discover them. The surprise Dragon Tomb battle. An army could unknowingly march over one of these locations. A battle begins. The player may initially think it's an ordinary battle. If whatever army wins, a special event appears. The Dragon Lord Tombs discovered. The victorious faction has uncovered an ancient tomb inside. A dragon egg is what you would get. The egg belongs to the winning faction. The system works for player factions and AI factions. Any faction can discover a dragon egg. Dragon eggs are not automatically reserved for the Targaryens. For example, House Stark wins a battle, they obtain an egg. Dothraki win a battle, they obtain it. Braavos wins, they obtain it. This means the world could develop completely new dragon riding dynasties, ancient cities. Another major exploration mechanic is the lost ancient cities. These cities were built by civilizations from the distant past. Their locations are hidden. They could be discovered through exploration expeditions, ancient maps, special characters, quests, random events, battles, and exploration of ruins. Discover an ancient city. When a player discovers one ancient city discovered, the player can abandon it, leave it on, leaves the ruin untouched, loot it, gain immediate wealth and resources, explore it, search for lost knowledge, rebuild it, turn it into a new settlement. That gives you, the player, a new city. Rebuilding ancient cities. The rebuilding process takes time and resources. The city progresses through stages. Ancient ruins, restoration site, rebuilt settlement, ancient city restored. Once restored, the city becomes a permanent settlement. It could provide income, population, trade, recruitment, research, strategic positioning. Technology of the ancients. Ancient cities can contain lost technologies, examples including ancient architectural, improved food production, ancient metallurgy, ancient weapons and armor, ancient engineering, improved construction and siege equipment, ancient shipbuilding, improves naval vessels, ancient medicine, better character survival and recovery rate, ancient architectural, stronger fortifications, ancient astronomy, improved navigation and exploration, ancient dragon lore, knowledge concerning dragons, eggs, breeding, and dragon riding, the ancient technology tree. Ooh. The recovered knowledge enters a separate ancient technology tree. The player can gradually research and restore forgotten knowledge. Technology can spread through the faction. This creates a completely different progression system from ordinary faction technologies. Faction or technology trading. Ancient knowledge could become a strategic resource. A faction could sell it, trade it, give it to allies, keep it secret, steal it, or capture a city containing it. Technology advanced faction could become extremely powerful, like regular Total War. Ancient cities can contain dragon eggs. Some extremely rare ancient cities could contain dragon lord chambers. Rebuilding and exploring the city could reveal a dragon egg. This creates another path to obtaining dragons. Therefore, dragons can potentially return through historical events, dragon lord tombs, and ancient cities. Now we get on to the juicy bits. The White Walkers. The White Walkers are a completely unique faction. Their arrival would work similar to the Mongol invasion from Rome Total War. They do not begin as a normal kingdom, competing for territory. They emerge as an external threat eventually. The dead begin to march. White Walker recruitment. The White Walker would function similar to the undead factions from Rome Total, or not Rome, Total War Warhammer. The dead rise, so they raise dead soldiers. Potential units: white infantry, white archers, white cavalry, White Walkers, warriors, undead giants, undead monsters. White Walker commanders, undead dragons. The more people die, the more soldiers become available to the dead. The fall of Westeros. The White Walkers' first major objective is to conquer Westeros. If Westeros falls, the long night begins. The normal campaign ending is cancelled. Instead, the campaign extends another 100 years. Infected ships. If Westeros falls, surviving ships attempt to escape. Some carry refugees' corpses, rites, and supernatural infection. These ships can reach ports through the world. This creates a plague-like infection, mechanics similar to the plague system in the Total War games. Sediments can progress through the infection system. Sediments can progress through exposed, infected, outbreak, undead, uprising, settlement, collapse. The system applies to cities, port towns, villages, fortifications. Infected cities. When an infected sediment is discovered, the player can attempt to purge the undead. A special battle occurs. The player must eliminate the undead before the sediment falls. The cost of the purge. Even a successful purge has consequences. The fighting kills civilians and destroys infrastructure. The settlement receives major penalties, population loss, morale loss, public order penalties, economic damage, reduced growth, damaged buildings, reduced recruitment capacity. The citizens may have survived, the undead only to suffer enormous loss during the battle. The failed purge. If the purge fails, the undead take control. The settlement becomes a White Walker stronghold. The undead can use these cities as another source of their expansion. Repeated outbreaks. If the city successfully completes the purge, it is not permanently safe. The same city can become infected again. Outbreaks can happen randomly. Therefore, outbreak, purge, recovery, new outbreak could happen multiple times. Quarantine. Players can quarantine infected settlements. The ports and ports. This reduces the chances of infection spreading. However, quarantine damages trade, food supply, the economy, and public order. The player has to decide whether containment is worth the economic damage. Evacuation. Players can evacuate important people such as generals, nobles, soldiers, resources, characters, but refugee movements could potentially spread the infection. This creates another difficult strategic choice. Stopping the White Walker infection. The infection cannot simply be stopped by winning battles around the world. The true source must be eliminated. Only permanent solution is to retake Westeros. The living must reconquer the north, retake the wall, destroy the White Walker armies, reach their source, destroy the Night King and the White Walker leadership. Once Westeros is secured, the source of the infection is destroyed. Existing infected cities still need to be purged, but new infection is no longer spreads from Westeros. The White Walker's victory condition. The White Walker victory condition. The White Walkers have unique victory condition. Phase 1, fall of Westeros. Phase 2, spread the long night. The White Walkers ultimately need approximately 80 to 90% of the world map under their control. If they reach this threshold, the long night has won. The last alliance. If Westeros falls, surviving citizens can form the last alliance. Possible include Targaryen, Starks, Dorne, Bravos, Violentus, Yitai, other surviving Westeros houses. Ooh. It's hard to speak for some reason. Other surviving facts. Civilizations. Formal enemies can temporarily unite because survival becomes more important than politics. Targaryen victory condition. The Targaryens have their own unique victory condition. Restore the Targaryen realm. The player must reclaim the important territories historically held by the Targaryens on Westeros and outside Westeros. Simply possessing the King's Landing isn't enough. The objective is to rebuild the broader Targaryen sphere of power. Dothraki victory. The Dothraki can pursue the great cars, or this could include uniting, conquer Dothraki Sea, establish a permanent empire, conquer major settlements, civilizations, eventually invading Westeros. Other faction victories. Normal factions to, total war style victory consists short victory, complete important faction objectives, long victory, control major strategic territories, and defeat major vast rivals. Domination victory, control a massive percentage of the world. Faction specific victory, complete objectives unique to the faction. Losing conditions, a faction can lose through normal total war mechanics, possible including faction destroyed, final territory lost, dynasty eliminated, faction-specific defeat. However, losing a major city does not necessarily mean game over. A dynasty can flee, rebuild, and eventually return. The three major campaigning campaign endings, the normal ending. The campaign reaches 1 year after the Game of Thrones television final. The game produces historical record of what happened. The long night ending. Westeros falls. Continues for another. The campaign continues for another 100 years. The White Walkers spread across the world. They reach approximately 80 to 90% of the global control. The dead wins. The resistance ending. Westeros falls. The living survive. They build alliances, reconquer Westeros. They destroy the Long Night, and they eliminate the source of the infection. They purge the remaining infected settlements. The Long Night ends. The final historic record. At the end of the campaign generates a completely alternate history report example. House Targaryen restored the Seven Kingdoms. 12 dragons remain alive. House Stark controls the north. The Dothraki united under a single Carl. Ancient cities were restored. Ancient metallurgy transformed to Korean warfare. 2 Dragon Lord tombs were discovered. The White Walker, just normal, like a stat screen, to the end of the, at the end of the game. So, yeah. Hope you guys liked it, and see you guys another time. So yeah, bye bye for now.